Hi everyone, welcome back. Today we're going to be talking about nutrition and metabolism. And to get us started, we need to sort of review and introduce some important definitions and terminology. So first of all, let's talk about nutrients. Nutrients are essential substances, and it's a little generic talking about this because we really mean water, vitamins, ions, carbohydrates, lipids, proteins. So pretty much all of the organic molecules and some inorganic molecules. But the critical word here is that nutrients are obtained from the diet. So they're not able to be synthesized in the body necessarily. The body is going to take them in and then absorb them through the digestive tract. So we have already spent time defining and identifying carbohydrates, lipids, and proteins. We've also discussed in detail the critical significance of water in the human body. What we have not done is define minerals and vitamins, so we're going to do that quickly. So minerals actually are organic ions that are released through the dissociation of electrolytes. So we're talking about calcium, potassium. So we know them as ions. We've identified them as inorganic previously, but now we just want to sort of also introduce the word mineral and know that they're considered minerals as well. And we know that the physiologic roles of these ions are so monumental and so ever present in the body. Things like maintaining osmotic concentration of body cells and fluids, things like skeletal maintenance. We haven't talked too much about this, but we did introduce the idea of parathyroid hormone and calcitonin, which are going to regulate calcium levels in the body. So that's going to affect the skeleton. Muscle contraction, which we've established, action potential generation, which we've discussed in grave detail, neurotransmitter release, blood clotting, and so many more things. But those are just that's a pretty good list to get us started. The thing that we want to mention is vitamins. So vitamins are essential organic nutrients that are related to lipids and carbohydrates. So they kind of are in their own class because of their chemical structures. But what we want to talk a little bit about is what the vitamins are. So what vitamins are we talking about? You know, what vitamins matter to us, and then what do they do? So first of all, vitamins are generally classified as fat soluble or water soluble, and the fat soluble vitamins are A, D, E, and K. And so we're not going to spend a whole lot of time talking about these vitamins, but it is just a few things to mention, a couple details. Vitamin D is a group of steroid vitamins, including vitamin D3. And so vitamin D3 actually can be obtained through sun exposure. And vitamin K actually is involved in blood clotting. And the thing that may be familiar about this is something like Coumadin, for example, is a vitamin K antagonist. So we know Coumadin as a blood thinner or an anticoagulant, but in terms of the mechanism, without really drawing out and knowing the entire clotting cascade, we can at least just know that vitamin K participates in the clotting cascade, and if we inhibit vitamin K, then we will in fact have a blood thinning effect. It's unlikely to have a deficiency of any of the fat-soluble vitamins. Because they're fat-soluble, they can actually be stored in adipose tissue or in fat for a long period of time. So if there's any need, the body would likely just release them from the fat cells. So now the other set of vitamins is the water-soluble vitamins. These are generally the B vitamins and a few others, and we'll just go through them really quickly. So vitamin B1 is thiamine. We know thiamine because it's, we don't commonly administer it pre-hospitally, but it used to be administered pre-hospitally, and it is, part of the collection of drugs that can be administered pre-hospitally. B2 is riboflavin, which is a precursor to FAD, which is something that functions as a molecule that's able to accumulate electrons during carbohydrate metabolism. So we'll sort of demonstrate that in another video. Vitamin B3, which is niacin, which is a precursor to NAD, similar to FAD. Vitamin B5, which is pantothenic acid, which is a precursor to acetyl-CoA, which also is we'll see sort of in the interchange between glycolysis and the Krebs cycle, so coming up in another video. Vitamin B6 is pyridoxine. B12 is cobalamin. And then we have folic acid, biotin, and then vitamin C, which is ascorbic acid. All right, so we've defined nutrients, and I just want to follow that up by defining nutrition, which is basically the absorption of nutrients through food, and metabolism, which I believe we've already defined, and this is just sort of a recap. A couple of these things will be review at this point, just because this is what we're going to spend the rest of the time discussing is exactly how metabolism happens. So we want to be familiar with all the terminology, and so just review quickly. Metabolism is all of the chemical reactions that occur within the body. And you may remember from previous lectures that metabolites are chemicals that are produced in the body as a result of chemical reactions. Cellular metabolism refers to chemical reactions occurring within cells. It's needed for maintenance of homeostasis, and it's also needed for so the body can perform its essential functions to maintain life. Catabolism is the breakdown of organic molecules to release energy and synthesize ATP. Anabolism is a synthesis of new organic molecules. It involves the formation of chemical bonds. Metabolic rate, this term is, I believe, new. Metabolic rate is the sum of all anabolic and catabolic reactions at the time of measurement. So at any particular moment in time, if you want to measure all the reactions occurring in the body, then you could refer to that as a metabolic rate. And the basal metabolic rate is the minimum resting and energy expenditures of an awake, alert person. So a metabolic rate could be taken at any time. It could be taken during sleep, it could be taken during rest, it could be taken during activity, it could be taken immediately after running a marathon. But basal metabolic rate refers to basically a situation of rest. So a person would be, lying in bed or lying on the floor, doing absolutely nothing, expending zero energy, but is awake, and so therefore the energy expenditure is slightly higher than a person who is, let's say, sleeping or something worse like unconscious. All right, so the last thing I want to mention as we wrap up here our introduction is a nutrient pool. So the body basically is a nutrient pool, and so it has stores of amino acids, lipids, simple sugars, and that are present all the time in cells that can be used for anabolism. So we're just going to draw a little pool quickly, and we can see our amino acids and lipids and sugars, and so basically all of these things will contribute to utilization to make ATP. And so I'm drawing a little mitochondria here, and then what we get as far as output, about 60% of the output is energy in the form of heat, and about 40% of the output is energy in the form of ATP. So lipids and carbohydrates can be used directly to produce cellular energy in the form of ATP, and if there's extra, we can just store it for later. It's no big deal. Amino acids, on the other hand, have to be converted to a carbohydrate intermediate, so that would be something like a keto acid, before it can be used to produce cellular energy. And it can't be stored in excess, so any additional protein intake is ultimately going to be excreted in the urine. It's not going to be stored for later. So if it can't be used, then the body doesn't save it. So there are generally two metabolic states that exist. There's the absorptive state and the post-absorptive state, and we're going to sort of keep in mind the nutrient pool, keep in mind the possibilities in terms of what we can do for chemical reactions, and we'll discuss the different states of metabolism in the next video. So that concludes our overview of nutrition and metabolism. Hopefully it's not too overwhelming, because the terminology is pretty straightforward and some of it is really just review. But as we move forward, we'll talk a little bit about what happens during the different time periods, during eating, shortly after eating, and then after a break from eating. And then we'll talk specifically about the metabolism of the different organic molecules, and we'll get kind of specific about that. So I hope you enjoyed the intro. Thanks for watching.